Full and short, here we are again. A man in California decides that he's going to attempt to stop what is now a legal practice in many parts of that state, as I understand, and elsewhere across Western civilization, and that is shoplifting. Why is shoplifting now legal in many areas? It's dependent upon a certain value at this point, but who knows how long that will be. But why is it legal? Well, it's legal because it pushes back against the norms of Western civilization. It white erases those norms, those expectations of behavior, that when you acquire goods and services, that you reciprocate those who supply you with those goods and services. Of course, this is not going to be tolerated by white people who are not anti-white, but as it is destructive of Western civilization by way of white erasing our standards and expectations of behavior, it is increasingly permitted to take place. So here's this guy in California. I'm not going to play the video because he has a tussle with her, and YouTube will put this under a restriction because of that. So he has a tussle. There's at least 2, maybe 3, or even 4 women that are part of the heist at, looks like, a TJ Maxx, where they are stealing what appears to be expensive purses. They just walk in, mask on, grab everything they want, and walk right out. He attempts to stop one of them. She actually punches him in the face, and he pushes back pretty hard, looks a bit foolish, and then pushes her up against one of these devices that's supposed to sound an alarm when a shoplifter walks out. The thing does nothing. It does nothing, even though her friends and she approached it with the bags, and even though her friends walked through it with bags, the alarms didn't go off. And of course, they are probably have been turned off because this sort of behavior has become acceptable. Who's going to pay for this? Who's going to pay for the increased prices of goods and services? You, my white-assed friends out there, you will pay more for your purses, for your blouses, for your slacks, for whatever it is. You will pay more because you ultimately are going to be paying for these people by way of increased prices at these locations as they pay more for their insurance. You ultimately are going to be paying for them to be adorned in everything better than you. That's ultimately what it's going to come down to. We've heard recently, of course, about the increase in a tax ultimately that you're forced to pay when you purchase a new home, so that you can finance individuals to purchase homes in your area that you're trying to move away from, people who are less Western in their behavior, so that they can live in your neighborhood as well. Of course, it's all my opinion. The question we're asking here is, since you are being forced to do these things by the establishment, by the law, by the government, does it make sense anymore to attempt to be the Samaritan, to force an expectation of Western behavior on an increasingly white race and anti-white Western world? The answer is no. My friends, do not attempt to enforce civility. Do not attempt to prevent people from shoplifting from establishments like this. You, depending on the state, are likely to have charges filed against you by the district attorney there for assault, battery, probably even kidnapping, if you detain one of these people. And then they will also, well, and to add to there, if you harmed them in some way, there could be severe charges. If you broke a bone or something of this nature, there could be some severe charges. But on top of that, you're going to have the civil suits that are going to follow you from these malefactors, these anti-white terrorists. They will then sue you as well. So my recommendation is, if you are you no longer live, this is a reality, you no longer live in Western civilization. There are remnants here. There's a carcass here. It's rotting here, but you no longer live in Western civilization. We're not about to lose it. Western civilization was defeated before you were born. If you're in America, none of us, in my opinion, none of us alive today were born in the United States of America. Yes, it has the same name, the same flag, doesn't have the borders anymore, except when you look at a map. But in point of fact, those borders are porous and therefore meaningless. Therefore, they're not there. So it makes no sense then to continue to attempt to enforce societal norms and expectations of Western civilization on an increasingly white erased and radical anti-white Western world. I wanted to share this story about this gentleman attempting to do this, because this is intimately connected to Daniel Penny, who is the Marine vet who attempted to be the Samaritan. He was the Samaritan. He was the Chad for the moment, protecting the citizens on the subway who, after we now know, with some more information that has been revealed, that Neely was really quite violent. He had gone he forced his way into the closing doors, and he was shouting, and he said he had enough, and he took his jacket off and threw it on the ground, and who knows what was going to come next. And so Daniel Penny decided that he was going to place this choke hold. Was not a sleeper hold. That's the one that cuts off the blood flow to the brain. Decides to put on a choke hold, during which you can see Neely struggle over a 10 or 15 minute period. He struggles from time to time. You can see his chest rising and falling, which would indicate to me, and I'm a layman, so make sure you check it out with your local anti-white police officer about whether or not that is viewed as respiration. But he appears to be breathing and then struggling occasionally, and then nonetheless perishes. Daniel made the decision to protect the people in the subway. And I would say in that scenario, if you don't see many of your kin, if you don't see many of us or many other people who are, similarly, the similar persuasion, if you will, endorsers of Western civilization, perhaps these you would merely put behind you to protect you if you were in that situation, or otherwise encourage them to flee from this individual. But fighting this individual, fighting Neely, fighting the purse snatchers at TJ Maxx is only going to result in you having charges placed on you by the district attorney and for various reasons, including things like kidnapping, involuntary manslaughter, assault, etc., and then civil suits that will follow that will cripple you economically and therefore in every other way for the rest of your life. Folks, it's not worth it. If you are an advocate for white well-being, you need to, above all things, to maintain that platform that you stand on in order to advocate for white well-being. That means you need income, you need a job, you need a safe place to live, you need protection for you and your family, you need backup resources. You don't need more than 3 months worth, but you do need that. You need these things in place so that you can secure yourself and your family while you advocate for white well-being to change the world with the lexical and dialectical power of the Go Free method. There is nothing like it in the world. Get to a place like that. Forget about taking on physically the anti-white terrorists. They're like zombies at this point. They're everywhere you go. They're shimmying over the fences. They're walking over borders that are invisible. Nothing there to stop them. The government, anti-white as it is entirely behind them. The entire media is entirely behind them. The entire academia is behind everything anti-white. You are nothing but prey to them when you attempt physically or in some other way to arrest the anti-whiteism consuming Western civilization. We have one thing to do, and that is to bring a new moral imperative to our people, because Western kind needs a moral imperative to act. Bring this to them, and you change their minds. And when you change their minds, you change what they do with their bodies. You change their decisions. And from that comes our deliverance. Roll out.